Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, here on the Arise News channel. With me in the studio, I still have Professor Bola Akintenuwa, Director General, Bolitag Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies. Professor Anthony Killer, Director at the Center for International Advanced and Professional Studies. Yemi Adamolekun, Executive Director in Office Enough, and Chike Ogea, former Commissioner for Information, Delta State, and Managing Director of Martfoley Limited. Okay, so far we have had two guests on this program today. G.T. Ogunye, discussing developments in the Supreme Court of Nigeria and also in the political space. And Uzodinma Iweala, talking about issues ahead of the 2023 general election process in Nigeria. I'd like to start with you, Chike Ogea, on both issues.
Well, of course, let's start with the one that is germane to me, the one that touches and concerns me, and that is the one about the judiciary. I personally feel that everything that's happened lately with the Supreme Court has been very unfortunate. That was not the kind of thing, that we needed to see, where justices of the highest court of the land are forced to write that kind of petition that we noted that was written against the outgone CJN as he is now. I begin to almost weep when I think about the kind of justices that used to sit on that court. You talk about the likes of Justice Esho, Justice Idigbe, Justice Augustine Nnamani, the Socrates of the Supreme Court, Oputa, and justices of that caliber, Obaseki, Akpata. Yes, I met all of them even while I was in practice, and I think it's almost as if it was a different world altogether to what is going on now, and to how low, this court has been brought in my mind. And I think it all has to do with the politicization of the court. We have brought politics into the Supreme Court, and that is most unfortunate. There was a time-worn law of, seniority that is, Ruben, you're a lawyer, that is the creed of the bar and the bench. And all those things were disrupted just because, people were working to an answer. And I think the results and the fallout is what we are dealing with. It is really unfortunate. Look at the kind of ridiculous kind of petitions where what they are writing about this CJ. He takes his family, he doesn't take care of the court, he doesn't bother about the welfare of his brother judges, and these judges have to write this down. Then finally the right thing is done, and he says he's ill, he finds a way, whether he was pushed, whether he jumped, and then they go around and they give him an honor for that. Who does that? I begin to wonder. But, well, this is Nigeria, so what can we do? Just like GT said, I agree with him. There should be full investigations into this, especially if we know that we want to restore the glory of that apex court. I might slightly disagree with GT a bit that right now we need a mixture of judges in that court, i.e. take some of the very, very senior SANs that have been practicing, that have never gone near the bench. We need such independent minds and appoint them to the court. We have quite a few of them. Appoint them, mix them with those from the judiciary and from the bench as well. Like he rightfully said so that a lot of them have the mindset of the executive anyway. And if you want a court that you want to see action, you want to see, judicial action from, you can't just keep bringing people from that bent and from that kind of thinking. So I think all that needs to happen. And, that's the way we can get to start reforming that place. But I think it is pertinent and it is very important that a full investigation is gone into that court. We need to know what really happened and, forget all this, they gave them the GCON and all of that. And, the real steps should be taken, if you ask me. That's what I feel. That I noticed you touch again about the situation of the certificates and all of that. Again, I think our laws are a little bit outdated, if you ask me. What is this obsession with school cert and all these things we keep talking about. You know, I don't know how many of us still have school cert. I have mine, or primary school certificate. You know, those are not the things. We should raise the bar and start talking about a first or a second degree, at least for most of these offices. That is what I feel. And then we can, you know, stamp out all of that. Then in the case of the young man in Washington, I think he's done very well. Yeah, he's done quite well with what he's saying. He must understand that, yes, he lives in a different jurisdiction with different ethos, different ways of doing things. And that is why I can understand his mind. And from the prism he sees, you know, democracy in Africa. He wants younger people. He wants people that are 16 years old to participate. He wants a democracy that works for all, not obviously the kind of selective democracy we have in Nigeria. So in all of that, I agree with him. I mean, in Nigeria, how many % of our population determines elections? Well, what they call ubiquity now seems to be driving the country, you know, nuts, because, you know, it seems to be revving up the numbers. And they said that is a situation of looking for someone that has no structures to take out people with all the structures. Whatever it is, we welcome it. But that should hugely, you know, rev up the participation in our politics. Thank you.
Okay, Professor Kila.
So where do we start from? Let's start from the CJN, Justice Tanko. He's gone, he will not be missed. I think his arrival was not inspiring. His presence...
That's hate speech, Professor Kila.
It is not. He's not dead. He's gone out of the court. He's alive. He's gone away with a good check. You know, he's been given an award. He's going away with a good settlement. So there's nothing there. I mean, he will not be missed by those who love the law, the way I intend the law, who have passion for the law. His arrival in the court was not inspiring. His presence was not fulfilling, and his departure did not leave a hole. He did not come with a track record that makes you think something is there to look up to. His speeches were almost soniferous. There's something that will make you sleep. He doesn't look like a Chief Justice. So any student of law, whether you end up being I'm not a practicing lawyer, but whether you study to be a jurist, the inspiration of the Chief Judge of the land is something you look up to. Their speeches, their demeanor, I dare say their presence. And I think it doesn't matter. I think his presence was an assault to the court. And so, you know, well done that he's all over now. Let us hope we move on. What do we look up to? What should we be expecting? What should we be hoping for? A thorough reform. I totally agree that investigation should be done. It should be a thorough reform that is obsessed, that is pinned down to independence of the judiciary. That is what we should be hoping for. A judiciary that elevates itself, you know, both in process and in practice, that does not need to be anybody's lapdog. And they need to be independent financially in terms of promotion, adoption of people, and it should be decentralized. That's a key thing. You know, we cannot centralize this judiciary system in this way. For the other part of the segment, the vision of Africa, well, I think there's a point. So we have a Center for Africa's position, whose position is to project Africa well, you know, for starters. I am not in the business of providing anybody well. I'm in the vision of saying the truth and my opinion. I think we do not help Africa or anywhere by spinning things or saying, let's say good things about ourselves. It doesn't help. The first thing to do if you want to solve a problem is to admit you have a problem. You really have to know that things are bad. People are poor, people are ignorant, and even the moral values are dwindling away. So we need to know that is the truth. Then what do we do about it? I have an unpopular position about democracy, which is not this, you know, feel-good thing, let's get more people involved. It is not true. You actually don't need 70% of people to participate. The more the merrier, right? I argue, and I think this is one of the biggest errors if we want to reinvent Nigeria, is that we went to a universal adult suffrage without going to a qualified voting period in our lives. Yeah. There are too many people voting who should not be voting at all. Yep. They're not stakeholders, they're not educated, they're not taxpayers. They have nothing at stake. I think, just as we talk about qualified candidates, I think we need to talk about qualified voters. And I think that we've made an error, which we just accepted from the world, to link voting to citizenry. To say because I vote, I'm a citizen, is not true. The people who grew up under the Commonwealth without being citizens had a better life than Nigerian citizens. You don't need to have somebody like you to say, I voted, so I'm part of it. What is needed is to say that my rights, my interests are protected. And if I really want to vote, and this is the thing, our voting card, our PVC, I think rather than a testament of being a citizen, it should be something you qualify for. Either by paying your tax, so unpopularly, I will put in a polling tax. Either by paying your tax, not something you pay overnight. If you want to vote 2 years' time, start paying your tax today. So, you know why? So that nobody will be able to buy tax returns for people. And then I think it's not too much to answer 25 questions before you vote. Just have an idea that actually you know what you're going to do. Just random question, get there. I think a voter's card should be like a driver's license. So that the people who vote will not be so poor, so ignorant, that will end up selling their votes. The disappearance of certificates. Jacob Gill said, let us raise the bar. I agree with you, but if they raise it to MSc or BSc or anything, people will still lose their certificate. The issue here is not the level, it's where they put it or where it exists. So here's the point, I think. We say this thing, yeah, it is true. We seem to be obsessed with the certificate, but there's a reason for the obsession. Because people lie. Now, how many people are the candidates that we have there? What's about 25 parties, are they? About 18 parties. 18 parties. Out of 18 parties, you have about 9 candidates in the top levels with problem with the certificate. There's a population there. There's a high rate of, I don't know if it's delinquency, is lying, or they're forgetful among the people who want to rule Nigeria. If we accept that most of the people who want to rule us are people who misplace their certificates, we should then just say that this is what happens if you misplace your certificate. Write a letter to your school, shouldn't be more than 4 paragraphs, to say, I want my certificate, these are my proof that I went there. What is the proof? This is the year I went. I called to testimony 4 or 5 people who went with me. Yeah. And then the school should be mandated to reissue your certificate like within a week. And
but that's normal.
Should
process,
be straightforward.
You don't even need to write it.
You see, I say this thing not because I'm against anybody, because I worry about the psychic of these young ones, of other people, because I actually argue that partisan politics, and here's I stop, has taken more for us than it has given us as a people. Because you hear people say things, we've thrown common sense away. Yeah. It's all about supporting or being against. People don't even see themselves as a human being with his own ideas that is not dependent on anybody. We struggle to believe that somebody can say something without being tied to somebody else's apron. And that is worrisome.
Okay, Yemi, before we go to Prof, whom we are told should leave things to younger people.
I'll start with where Dr. Killer left off. That the former Chief Justice is present.
Professor, please.
His presence was an assault to the court. And I think for me, Chike Ogiya mentioned a list of people in the past who sat in the Supreme Court. For me, what I kept saying when he became Chief Justice was that this is the most senior law officer in Nigeria. And given Nigeria's pedigree of, not even past, of current lawyers and judges, despite the challenges, that this is the best that we're saying to the world represents our judicial system. And for me, that was really quite disturbing. Now, the second thing, I'll quote from Chidi Odinkalu, who wrote an article about what happened. He said, the most significant thing about the letter by the justices was that it had nothing to do with disagreements of principle or about the public standing of the judiciary. Rather, it focused most on subsistence issues, such as lack of accommodation, diesel rationing, Wi-Fi hunger. Tanko's signal contribution to the degeneration of high judicial office in Nigeria was that he impoverished the Supreme Court to the point of making its justice advocates of stomach infrastructure. And I think, for me, that is a nice summary of where we are in Nigeria. And we tend to think that there's some parts of Nigeria that would be immune to the decay of Nigeria as a country. But I think the judiciary has finally shown us that we can't expect a certain area to be different from the society within which these judges come from. And I think that, for me, really was really quite sad, but it's a statement of fact. G.T. Ogunye, when he spoke, one of the things I like that he said was when you asked him to assess the Chief Justice, he said that we should remember that it's not just about law, but it's also about justice. So when you're assessing a chief judge of a country, what judgments can we say, like either on principle, a stand, and we can refer to it generations to come? He said maybe 1 or 2 judgments, and that says a lot, again, if we're assessing that. Lastly, this issue of age. Now, it's very interesting. There was a lawsuit when Tanko was about to become Chief Justice of Nigeria against his age, that he falsified his age. Ariwoola, when he was, the day he was going to be acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, that was the first headline. Was it 54, 56? Because he supposedly was born in 56, started school in 58 or something.
58.
Yeah, but when the 58 was starting school in 56, anyway, some confusion about the age. But again, to your point, there is a pattern. And it's not just about, those are the ones that we know. No. But falsifying, as they call it, football age, is standard practice, as well as public servants. Because the younger you are, the longer you can spend in public service and get more money. And until we have a country that values data, values information, and can actually count its people. So when you are born, there's actually a record. It's in a database that nobody can decide they want to change. Or today you have a certificate, or you went to this school, and then suddenly tomorrow you are not in that school. And lastly, just really to piggyback on Dr. Killer's point about qualifying to vote, I think it's something we should really think about as a country. And I'll use the comment about from the governor of Bauchi. He said that he doesn't see a problem why Nigerians, not Nigerians, Nigerians, people who live in Niger, cannot come into Bauchi and benefit from Bauchi resources. Because after all, we're all members of the same family. So my question then is, for him, it wasn't a matter of citizenship. It was just a matter of the fact that we're all of the same ethnic group, and back some colonial architecture cut us off. So no, not at all. We're brother and sister, common in. So if that is common in to benefit of Bauchi's resources, it's also common in to vote in Bauchi's elections. I'll leave it there.
Prof.
Nigeria's problems have been theorized in a textual analysis given by Professor Killer. What is missing there is the text note analysis. In this case, G.T. Ogunye told us about how to assess the Chief Justice of Nigeria. He told us that if an individual can get to the crescendo of his profession, it is presumed that the competence has already been acquired. No, most unfortunately, I do not agree with him. At best, it's very myopic. Why? Anybody, from what I have seen in the public service, people have been transferred from state service to the federal service. One can be on level 8 in the state service, but when the individual is transferred to the public service, the mere fact of transference, they can put him on level 10, level 12. Please, empirical cases are there. So now, suddenly, your knowledge as level 8 officer, you miss level 9, you go beyond level 10, level 11, then to 12. No, please. The mere fact that you are the topmost level of a particular something does not give you a special reservoir of knowledge commensurate with that position. So I don't agree with anybody who is a proponent of that particular argument. First point. The second point is that we are faced with a situation whereby honor is given for incompetence. It is only in Nigeria where a federal government will suspend a public servant for inefficiency, for embezzlement, for whatever different allegations. Then at the end of the day, when the allegations are still there, the same federal government will give a commendation letter to the same individual. These records are there. So when we talk about incompetence, the allegations against the CJN stipulate or note that there has been inefficiency. Services, welfare have not been taken care of. All these allegations are there. But in the wisdom of the president, he decided to honor him. So I ask now, what is the honor for? Is the honor to say that the allegations are fantastic, they are good, as the British Prime Minister, one former British Prime Minister told us that we are fantastically corrupt. So the allegations are fantastically tenable. Now, and that traces the issue of the honor itself, GCON. I ask myself, why should honor be always be given in advance? Because the system here in Nigeria, the moment you are elected, the very day of your election, you become GCFR, you become GCON as vice president, etc. Why wouldn't you wait until you have given services so that the services can now be evaluated and we now say we confer? Now the submission of GT Ogunye that under normal circumstances, by the time he was so appointed, he should have been given. But now he was not given by that time. Now he is going and you are giving. No, award should be for merit. For God's sake, there are many people who, ordinarily speaking, should have been given highest honors in this country. People who work in the hospitals, lecturers, journalists, risking their lives, who under normal circumstances should have been given awards. But we have a system whereby you have to know someone, you lobby. No, this is ridiculous. Please. Now when you look at the argument of quality of determining whether a Chief Justice of Nigeria had done well, and you are looking at judges' judgments he had made, etc., that can at best be only one of the criteria. Please, evaluation. As a social scientist, this is the beauty of academic analysis. You must have your paradigms there. You must look at the character. You must look at the integrity. You must look at what it stands for, his philosophy, etc. The contribution to societal development. Now when people try to write doctoral dissertations, for instance, they don't give you a PhD degree just because you know how to write. We want to see the value added. What is it that you have added to existing knowledge? If you do not have any contribution, any added value, what is your PhD for? It's not a joke. It's not a traditional chieftaincy title that has been likened to a commodity whereby you have money they give you. No. PhD is different. It's even different from a master's degree dissertation, which is just meant for you to introduce you to research. Please, on that note now, let's come to the issue of 1/3 of a population participating in democratic elections. I'm now coming to Ariwoola. His submission is quite notable. But please, it is not sufficient to use the criterion, to the methodology of non-participation to determine whether a state is dictatorial or whether there is democracy or not. No, please. How do you explain the fact that low turnout? It is an individual decision when you do not turn out, when you do not come out to vote. It is not the decision of the government. So when people do not come out to vote, all right, then in this case, I will not say, well, participation is very low. How do you explain that one? It doesn't have any governmental connotation.
Yes, it does. If you don't believe in the system of government, you won't
so precisely. It doesn't mean that the democracy doesn't exist in that case. There are many factors there. He told us that 50% women affirmation has a global character. I agree with him. He's quite right. But the bottom line is that in Nigeria, the bitter truth is that political governance is largely predicated on fraud, dishonesty of purpose. It doesn't have anything to do, when you talk about certificate, I raised it earlier. Is the problem possession of certificate? No. But the issue is simply that people, please, our politicians will never have certificates. That's the bitter truth. Holding certificates, lots of certificates. How do you explain the fact that you have been elected before? Where was INEC? What was the certificate you gave? What qualified you? So, you see, the INEC that is supposed to be an instrument for ensuring honesty of purpose, to ensuring qualification, they don't do that. There was a time, for instance, wrongly or otherwise, didn't they say, oh, Atiku Abubakar is not a Nigerian, he is a Cameroonian. When you know quite well the British law qualified him, enabled him, all those things. So already, politics in Nigeria, for God's sake, we need to pray to God Almighty to change the blood running in the blood vessels of Nigerians so that we can be honest in the things we are doing.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Let's take one more topic before we wrap it up today. According to the federal government of Nigeria, terrorists who target difficult-to-reach locations, particularly in the northeast, are thwarting efforts to secure a consistent supply of electricity across the country. According to the report, the transmission company of Nigeria was unable to provide power to the impacted areas due to the damages. Abubakar Aliyu, the Minister of Power, revealed this to reporters from the State House while updating them on the results of the Federal Executive Council meeting that Vice President Yemi Osinbajo presided over at the Presidential Villa in Abuja. Meanwhile, the management of the University of Port Harcourt Teaching Hospital has debunked reports that 14 infants died as a result of a power outage in its facility. The acting public relations officer, Elabha Meni, said this in a statement issued in Port Harcourt on Saturday. Meni was reacting to reports on social media that 14 infants had died at the hospital, although he confirmed that there was a power outage. He, however, said the report was intended to damage the image of the institution, which he described as a center of excellence. The statement says, our attention has been drawn to a story of the 14 to 19 babies dying in the hospital. This is not correct. We did not record any infant mortality in our inborn and outborn unit as a result of our electrical power outage due to the faulty transformer done with the standby generator serviced the hospital for the period, with all emergency areas fully powered. Surgeries were never cancelled, neither were our services disrupted. Well, it's important that the University of Port Harcourt Teaching Hospital is giving that clarification, because many just concluded that if infants who are in incubators have to die because of power outage, I mean, that would be a disastrous exemplification of the tragedy that we faced. Let me start with you, Yemi.
But I'm not sure that it hasn't happened before. And I think for me, what's interesting is when I read the story, I believed it. It's not, so the fact that there's a statement still doesn't mean I don't believe that it happened. And I do hope that if it did happen to any parent, that seriously, that they would speak up. Because it won't be the first time. There are surgeries that have been aborted or gone bad because of power outage. There are people that have had to buy diesel or for public hospitals. So it's not an abnormality. And I guess we shouldn't treat it as that, because we do have a power problem in the country. And then the second part of the earlier part of the story around the government blaming terrorists. I'm just even reading that. I'm just like, you are indicting yourself and expecting empathy. And that seems to make sense in this warped governance structure that we're in. So you're renovating infrastructure. You know that there's a terrorist problem. would the common sense thing to do not be to ensure that it's secure? And so, and I guess it also speaks larger, to a larger issue. Infrastructure are inanimate objects. Nigerian citizens, so plus inanimate objects, plus human beings, the federal government continues not to be able to protect secure lives of citizens, which is a primary mandate per our constitution. And it's something that we need to talk about. So being able to just boldly just say that it's, terrorists are sabotaging what we're doing. Okay, and then what? And so then what are you going to do? Then how are you going to fix the problem of terrorists? We don't have a solution to that, but we will complain that terrorists are causing us problems.
Well, Chike, let me come back to you.
Well, this is the story of our lives in Nigeria. I totally, adopt Yemi's brief, as we say in law, because we all know that in Nigeria we have a major power problem. In fact, when I read that story about the University of Port Harcourt situation, there was something I read that particularly was painful to me. There was supposed to be about this couple that had not had kids for maybe 7 or 8 years, and they finally had those twins they had there, and this happened. And like Yemi said, the whole story is still up in the air. We don't know if it's true. We don't know if it actually happened or not. But the truth is that it happens every day. And if it didn't happen, we thank God. But I know it will be happening in so many other places at the same time. Again, that takes us to the situation about the terrorists. Just exactly like Yemi said, I heard the Minister of Power talking, but, I have a lot of insight into a lot of these things, but I can't say many things on TV. And, the problems with Nigeria are deep. Like we keep saying, issues are, they are real neck deep. And it's a pity. Yeah, you're trying to improve or provide infrastructure. People are entitled to a good life as best as you can give them. And if we know we have those places are unsafe, the most important thing is to safeguard those things. Coming out to shout that you provided them and they have destroyed them, how does that help anybody? We need to secure our country. And the final one, if you remind me, what was that one again? There's the final topic you just talked about. I seem to miss that.
We touched both.
Is it just those two?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically.
Okay, Prof. Professor Akintayo.
The causal factor and the death. Are we saying that there were no children that died? Because the reports have it that some children died. Now, whether they now die as a result of power outage is a different question entirely. The denier, the statement is saying no one died as a result of power outage. So we are left in a confusion. So if some children died, we may now look for the reasons. One thing. Now, when we talk about terrorists, now how do the terrorists arrive in Nigeria? Because I listened to the Minister of the Interior, Ariwoola, who said the attack on the St. Francis Hospital Church in Ondo State, he attributed that one to ISWAP terrorists. Now I ask myself, you, Minister Ariwoola, you are Minister of Interior. Immigration is under your ministry. All these customs, this civil defense, prison, they are in your ministry. So if you are in control of immigration, how is it that terrorists can easily enter your territory? So whenever I talk about dishonesty in political governance is as a result of all these unnecessary taking for granted the Nigerian people. The government is taking the people of Nigeria for granted as if we are buffoons who cannot reason. Now you will come into the open, you are failing in your responsibility as a government, you cannot protect the society, and then some people will come to say, no, you cannot arm yourselves. They will be quoting laws, telling us what the Constitution says. Now, when, for instance, you are in your car, Third Mainland Bridge, you roll up, somebody will come and be begging you something, so give me money, and will be threatening you. And now you will be quoting law for me not to find a way of defending myself. A terrorist doesn't take any permission from anybody to use gun. So how can you be preaching this type of gospel? Civil society organizations will be talking about human rights. Please, for God's sake, where is human rights when your life is at risk? You have to use whatever you have to defend yourself.
Okay, Professor Killer?
Self-defense is an argument.
Well, I think we have a sort of original saying in Nigeria, which is understanding the civitas, understand the civic living. We say this in as if, oh, maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. Somebody died due to outrage, maybe no. These are the things you say at home. Misunderstanding happens in passion and in friendship. It doesn't happen in public spaces. In public spaces, lying is perjury. I think when we have situations like this, we should not just say, oh, the organization said it's not true, everybody go home. No. The organization should sue those who said so. Those who said so should prove where they got it from. Or somebody should be looking at the organization and say, you are lying. Or you're saying the truth. And I think, you see, this little thing is what I think is missing in our life as a collective, as a people, that we confuse the civic engagement with personal relationship, where people just say, oh, sorry, I tried my best. That is why you find ministers or the whole government talking about their efforts, as if they're artisans who come to do your air conditioner. You tell them the thing is not cold enough, and they keep telling you they've put gas, they've changed this. And you say, look, he's not cold. You're paid to get the AC to be cold. This is not cold. And that mindset has sort of absorbed all of us, and it has gone to levels where it should really not reach. We need to change that.
Okay, let's wrap this up finally with a story from the United States. Now, on a historic day in the American legal world, where Ketanji Jackson Brown has been sworn in as America's 116th Supreme Court Justice and the first African-American woman to serve on the nation's highest court. Judge Jackson faced questions by senators during her confirmation hearing in April and eventually gained a 3-vote majority. A confirmation will not change the balance of the court, which is composed of 3 liberal justices and 6 considered to be conservative, 3 of them appointed by former President Donald Trump. Well, Yemi, very quickly. It's historic, truly. But truly also, the balance has not changed. You have Sotomayor, you have Hagan, and you now have Jackson on the liberal side. But you still have on the other side the Republicans having their own people dominating. The effect, you know, we saw that in Roe versus Wade reversal.
Indeed. And I mean, I think you change the balance. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court is for life. So until someone dies and you get to appoint somebody else, it is what it is. So we'll focus on the positive side, the fact that she's the first African-American woman. And I think it's historic, not just in that fact, but in the time. In the time that America is going through a lot in reviewing its race relations, its gender relations, i.e. Roe versus Wade, to have a woman who was so thoroughly scrutinized and was able to defend herself with such grace, I think it is something to be celebrated. And also a reminder, wasn't appointed by a black president, which again, there was a lot of controversy when Obama was president, but appointed by a white or Caucasian president, but also able to scale, passing both, I guess, the Senate, which is mostly Republican. So yeah, Really happy for her and look forward to, and this is a Supreme Court. We will see judgments. We will see her work because there will be judgments that she will write, unlike what we were discussing here earlier.
Well, don't put down Nigerian
It's a
justices.
statement of fact.
CK, very quickly, the last word on this, and then we'll go.
For me, this just tells, yes, gender is good and all of that, but it just tells you the whole gamut of what America is made up. The child of nobody will become somebody and be everything in America. That's the system there. I pray we get there here soon.
Okay. Children of nobody too, by the way, but go ahead.
Anyway, you've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. For my entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching.